Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Building Authentic Trust with Remote Teams, presented by the Director of Leadership Training at Watermark Learning, Andrea Brockmeyer. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting and moderating our session today. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with all of you in an email after the webinar. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Mariela. And yes, please chime in throughout. Don't feel like you have to wait till the end. I'll try to catch comments as we go, but would love to hear from you at any point. So it's great to be here with you on the penultimate day in January 2025. Where did the month of January go? If you do know, feel free to let me know about that in the chat as well. So where are we at with where we work? I have talked about this topic for a while, and it's a constantly evolving thing. I mean, first everybody was in the office, right? Sometime, years ago. Then everybody went remote. Then everybody's doing some kind of hybrid thing. Now there's kind of this, we're all going back to the office, or some people are going back to the office. So, I think it's just interesting to kind of think of where are we at. And so I've got a poll here. I want to see where everybody is sort of at physically, but also where you're at attitudinally. So I'm going to put a poll up there. You can choose more than one answer here. So go ahead and just share, if you would, how you feel about where you work. Are you in the office full time and you like it? Or maybe you're remote 100% of the time and you like it. Maybe you're hybrid and you like it. Maybe you wish you were in one place or the other more. And then I wanted to hear from folks that maybe are you in a place where they're calling everybody back in? I'm sure there are other potential answers here, but good, getting great participation here. Awesome. Give it another few seconds here for folks to weigh in. No plans. Yeah, so for a while there, it was like every day another big company was making an announcement. All right, 10 seconds. A couple more answers. Okay. All right. So here we go, sharing the results. I hope everybody can see. Mariela, if you want to confirm that for me, that everybody can see, that would be awesome. So,
Looks good.
yeah, I think I'm not terribly surprised. So it looks, most people are working 100% of the time and like it. Not too many people saying they wish they worked in the office more, although there are a few. And of course, each one of these answers, lots of questions that we could ask as follow-up. Not too much in the way of people having to go back to the office or getting to go back in the office. Interesting. So this is helpful. A number of people in the office full time and they like it. Hybrid people like, yeah. That's kind of fun. That's some interesting reaction there. Actually, I want to just make sure I don't lose track of that. I think we get that at reporting, but it's all anonymous. But thank you for sharing that, folks. That's interesting to know. I think one thing is that, working virtually in some flavor is not going away. I mean, even if they are calling people back to the office, there's still going to be instances where people are working remotely. So the question is, how do we establish constructive working relationships when we're working with people that we don't see, right? Or that we can see them maybe, but we're not physically with them. So trust is key. And you hear about this all the time, trust being the number one thing, but it is really the foundation upon which constructive, positive, collaborative working relationships are built. So when you're working virtually, you need to think about how do we create an environment that is safe so that people can be creative and innovative. And that is, after all, increasingly what we're demanded to bring to our desk every morning, every day, is creativity and innovation to solve problems that are constantly evolving, right? And if you don't feel safe, you aren't going to be able to do that. And trust is really safety is the extension of trust, if you think about it that way. There has to be trust with the people that you're interacting with at that moment, or even just in that general milieu, right? So that psychological safety is also essential for achieving agility. So if any of you are doing anything with Agile, or if you've done any Agile training, or maybe you've done some certified Scrum Master certification, skills development kind of stuff, you know that the idea of trust and safety is foundational in Agile. Um, Agile frameworks, whether it's Scrum, XP, whatever, they all have their own principles that they use to kind of guide their framework. And safety and trust are typically in there somewhere. And that's because in order to be agile, whatever that means to you, whatever that looks like, you can't be, squirming about whether or not you feel okay to say something, do something, suggest something. So it really is, and again, agility, something that we all need in our initiatives, on our projects, in our organization, as we're trying to handle the barrage of changes that are coming our way. So we can't be squandering time with people being hesitant, right? They need to be confident and feel okay sharing ideas and moving forward with things. So the goal really, whatever our kind of environment is, because obviously trust is not unique to just, the need for trust is not unique to working in virtual environments. But the goal is to help everybody feel comfortable so that we can work together and actually move forward in a way that enables us to get something done, meet the business need, right? Look at all these cool places people are from. How long have we been doing this? And it's still fun. People still love to say where they are, and it's still fun to get that mental model of the globe in your mind and put the little pins where people are. It's still it's a cool thing. All right, so here's what's interesting. If you go, like, say, to, Bing.com images, or you go to, Pexels or some kind of resource for images for a presentation, and you look up trust, nearly all of them show people touching. They almost all show some kind of physical contact. The suggestion being, and to me, it was really interesting when I started looking for images for trust in a virtual environment. That's the one thing we can't do, not yet anyway, right? And so, in a virtual environment, there's this idea that when you're working face to face, you can shake somebody's hand, you can pat them on the back, you can do whatever is, professionally appropriate in that environment. But there is that sort of idea of that physical connection. And when we're working virtually, we can't do that. So immediately, right up front, this idea of trust in a virtual environment confronts this obstacle that's in our popular understanding of what trust implies, or what sort of trust comes with. Right? And then there are different definitions of trust. The one that I find particularly helpful is from Robert Hurley, and he suggested that trust is confident reliance on someone when you are in a position of vulnerability. Think about that. Trust is confident reliance on someone when you're in a position of vulnerability. Now, you can think of being vulnerable, say, to your doctor, because they know things that you can't possibly know. You can be vulnerable to your electrician because you don't know what it takes to do what they do, or whatever. But how are we vulnerable to the people we work with? How are you vulnerable to team members? How are you vulnerable to colleagues? It's a little shorter walk to understand how you're vulnerable to people that you report to, right? They could be punitive with something they don't like. They could maybe compromise your job, something like that. But if you think about it, Are we vulnerable to even people that report to us? And I'd suggest that we are. That this isn't about just, being able to make sure that people above you trust you, but that you need to make sure that people that report to you trust you, that you trust them, because we're vulnerable to the work that they do. We're vulnerable to the commitments that they make. We're vulnerable to the quality of the work that they do. We're vulnerable to our ability to be agile, to respond quickly and creatively and share ideas. If we can't, if there's somebody who isn't going to meet us halfway on that safety thing. Right? So I think that's something to keep in mind. And I think that we can't sit back and wait for somebody else to take the initiative on building trust because we're working virtually. We need to make sure that we get out there. And whatever that hierarchical relationship is, whatever that working relationship is, we need to put ourselves out there as well and take a risk and maybe be a little vulnerable. Um, and that's really how it's going to happen. Short of that, we're never really fully going to get there. All right, so some suggestions then for building trust in a virtual environment. Um, I was talking to Michael Reddington, who was doing a presentation on some of the work that he does, and he one of the things he says is that people interpret how we communicate as proof of how much we respect them. So when people are communicating, when you communicate to somebody, that is sort of evidence for them of how much you respect them, right? And think about it, when somebody communicates to you, you're reading into that, you're inferring from that how much they respect you. So our communications in a virtual environment takes on a huge importance because a lot of it is very low context, meaning it isn't a conversation face to face in real time and space. It's email or some sort of messaging. There's that distance. It's asynchronous. And so we have to be really mindful about how we're communicating to make sure that we are nourishing that respect that we need to have between people, between us and the people that we're communicating with. Little things like acknowledging email. This seems like such a simple thing. But have you ever worked with anybody who you send emails to and you don't get an acknowledgement? No, I got it, thanks. No, let me get back to you. No, I'll have an answer for you by the end of the day. You know, Nothing like that. And what is the implicit message there? They don't care, they don't respect you, you're not as important as other people that they're communicating with that day, evidently, right? I mean, how else do you, I mean, everybody's busy, right? But that there is an implicit message there that we often take as a sign of a lack of respect. Answer questions. If people have answers to questions, or if you're reaching out to get an answer, provide it, right? Be concise. I think there's an aspect of respect there as well. If people send communications and it's just paragraphs and it's a stream of consciousness and you have to wade through everything, that shouldn't be your job. The burden is always on the sender to make sure that a message is concise, that it's clear, that people are able to respond quickly and appropriately out of respect for the time that it takes to communicate well. And then hop on a video call if it's not a simple question. Hopefully you've got tools. Nearly everybody does, although I was talking with someone who's got an organization that still hasn't quite got there. Whether it's Teams or Skype or Chime or whatever it is, getting people used to calling people and asking with a video on, it goes so far to making that communications as close to face as possible, which is richer communications and which is trust building communication. When you can see people, it's just different, and we all know that. In the absence of information, people often make up something worse than reality. So these unanswered emails or emails that really are impossible to respond to and you're having to guess. We often don't fill in the blanks with something that's good. I mean, everybody likes to say no news is good news. Do you really, really embrace that at work? No news is maybe, I don't know, it didn't work. We're not going to get it in time. They didn't actually follow through. So do yourself and everybody else a favor and, think about being respectful in your communication. Follow up, answer, hop online. All right, another way to build trust in a virtual environment. Think about how you manage time, and there are certainly many aspects of that. But in terms of managing time specific to our virtual environment, when we have a face-to-face meeting, people come in and talk a little bit. And sometimes when we're online, people get right to the chase in the interest of time management. But you need to make sure that you're giving people time to chat as people are arriving, talk about something, facilitate that, make it safe, and make it comfortable. I still find sometimes people aren't really comfortable with that. But that really does help people get to know each other, and that's part of building trust. Even if it's just about the weather or what the local sports team's doing or whatever it is. And that really goes a long way. I was in a meeting not very long ago with a client, and somebody turned their camera on accidentally. And we started talking about, they had something in the background, a sports team. And so everybody started talking about sports. It was like one of the highlights of that particular standing meeting. And, it was just completely unwork related. Check in with how people are feeling. So if you imagine you're wanting to build trust with colleagues or with team members, um, check in one on one with folks. How are they doing? However you ask that question, don't just assume because you aren't hearing from people that everything's okay. And they might be doing really well in terms of the work that they're producing. How are they feeling about things? And then think in terms of warm-ups or energizers rather than icebreakers. Sometimes we say, well, we need icebreakers, to get everybody to kind of loosen up and things. Sometimes icebreakers are a call for people to run, right? If somebody sees icebreakers on an agenda and there's a 10-minute icebreaker, a lot of people see that as the reason to show up 10 minutes late. A lot of people don't have a real fondness for the idea of icebreakers, but think in terms of warm-ups or energizers. uh, 2 minutes can be something that you can do. Have people talk about the best thing that happened to them in the last week, or just real quickly, what's up for the weekend. Just people hearing their voices too is really important. The sooner people can hear their voices in a session, the more likely they are to talk. And you need people to engage. So think in terms of warm ups and icebreakers. The other is, although we're looking for engagement, we're looking for people to talk and hear themselves talk, also being comfortable with silence is really important. Some people think to talk, some people talk to think. And those people who think to talk, they need to digest, acknowledge silence, invite people. Is everybody thinking? Is everybody just pondering? Any thoughts? Anybody want to share some initial responses to this? Silence doesn't always mean that people are not engaged or that they disagree. Silence can mean lots of things. So, and of course, a group that you know better, you're better at reading that. I think we've gotten over the years, as we have been on this sort of virtual work journey, all of us, since 2020. Uh, I think we've gotten better with silence. I think there used to be a time when people were so inclined to talk right through it because it makes us nervous. But I think people are better at it than they used to be. But just be mindful about that as well. All right, and then just a couple of comments about technology, which we are surrounded with, which is, part of how we get through our day. But don't assume everybody is comfortable with or even is aware of the tools that are available. Uh, I have been in organizations where people were working and something new became available, and there was some kind of an announcement or that information was shared, but the people that it was targeted for weren't even aware of it, many of them, or some of them. And the tool landscape is constantly changing. So, and as new team members come or go, or new people come into the organization or whatever, don't assume everybody knows how to do everything. Set the expectation for ongoing learning and sharing together. Maybe take a little time with people who are new. Ask if there are people, you'd be surprised. Ask if they're, do you really know how to do this? Even like on teams, you're constantly getting these, here's something new. I mean, it's a lot to digest. Some people, early adopters, take that stuff in really easily, other people, not so much. Give people agency over the use of their camera is another thing. So video is so important. It takes you from here to here. Get people to turn on their cameras in any way you can, and yet you can't force them. It's really, you don't usually build trust by forcing people to do things, but encourage people to do it, model it, turn it on yourself. People just can't make peace with the fact that it really, really doesn't matter what your hair looks like. Nobody is going to remember. Uh, and but getting that, doing anything you can to get people to turn that on. And it gets so much easier, like anything else, it gets so much easier the more you do it. But that technology, invite people, um, just get people to share. Sometimes there's tools that people have that others maybe don't. And that's always problematic because then everybody isn't on a level playing field. But everybody may have the same thing. Not everybody knows how to use it. Yeah, and Aslam, you mean for like using the camera? Yeah. And I chime in, folks. What have you done that's been helpful? Ask people, say, and there's lots of research out there. Get people to turn it on just for a few minutes. Maybe, turn yours on for sure. Use an energizer that involves it. Maybe have people turn it on during their energizer. Say, hey, you know what? I'm going to ask everybody to turn your camera on. I'm just going to go around what you did for the weekend. Everybody, just if you want to turn it off after, that's okay. But let's just, you got to get people used to doing it. It's really like anything else. The more you do it, the easier it is. And there are so many other, initially when we started doing remote, people were like, well, I don't want anybody to see my home office. Or there's background. There are, you can blur it. You have people choose, make the energizer a favorite background, have people go out and find a fun background, and let's all share our fun background, and get people to laughing about it. A breakout room for, yes, absolutely, that's great. Yeah, if you've got a tool that allows you to put people in small groups or even pairs, absolutely, people will. Now you got to go in and make sure they actually do turn on their cameras, I have discovered. But yeah, that's a great idea, Marielle. I love that. Yeah. Let's go 5 minutes. Maybe you do your energizer in small groups. Get in groups of 2 to 3 or put them in groups of 2 to 3. Love that. All right. And then facilitation skills, some different things we can do when we're facilitating online sessions. Keep track of participation to make sure that everybody's engaged. If that means drawing putting the names and how many times are people communicating? If somebody just isn't participating, reach out one-on-one, message them if you can. But find out who are the folks that, if it's hard to know, who are the people that seem to be engaged or don't seem to be. Providing options for contributing can be really helpful too. I always invite people, or almost always invite people, to come off mute if they want, or put something in chat, or if you've got annotation on the screen. Zoom has this really great thing where you can annotate right on the screen. You can type right on the screen. I love that. I always invite people to do that. It's so cool. And then you can save it or erase it or whatever. That's because everybody has different ways of doing something, or their preferences, their sort of comfort level. And again, like everybody, like everything else, the more they do it, the more they'll get used to it. Some people are happy to come off mute. Some people will use chat, and chat is great, right? I think chat is awesome. And then, yeah, exactly. Jubilee, I love that. Yep, you got to be consistent. Yep. And even if you're the only one, just do it. Somebody will eventually feel sorry for you and turn theirs on too, so you're not alone. maybe not feel sorry for you, but somebody will help you out usually at some point. The other thing is, invite, again, this idea of giving agency to people and letting people have some input. Invite people to weigh in on, let's say you're going to have a 90-minute session or something. Ask people, hey, what do you want to, you guys want to have a break? Should we have a break halfway in this session? Because it's going to be, an hour and a half or whatever. What do you want to do in terms of, um, how we're going to run things? Um, I'd suggest cameras on, just ask people what they want to do. If there are any options for how you're going to run the meeting, that can be really helpful. Exactly. Yep. I love that. Yeah. You're going to get sick of me seeing me. So I'd invite everybody to turn their camera on. That's for sure. Yeah. Sometimes they just need a little prodding. People's resistance isn't always bad as you think it might be. Um, and then the last one, design for equal participation. If one person is remote, everybody should be remote. So this one's interesting because it used to be uh, some time ago, people would say if one person is going to be remote, then everybody should be remote, because the idea was that, if you've ever been in a meeting where everybody's at a table face to face, and then there's like, a couple of people that are on a little, hockey puck speaker in the middle of the room, those people are really sort of alienated. And if you've ever been the person that is on the hot, remote when everybody else is face to face, you can feel, sometimes you feel like, are they like rolling their eyes at each other, or that kind of thing. So it was sort of this, you need, everybody should be equal. Then we kind of got away from that, and we said, oh, you know what, if you've got, because as we started being hybrid and everybody started getting remote to some extent or another, people were saying, well, if you can get in the same room, get in the same room, and then have other people be remote and turn on their cameras. And now people are kind of going back to this remote thing. What's crazy is that people will be in the same building, even on the same floor, and still do virtual meetings, because there are some people who are remote. That may be best practice. I think you have to decide what's best for you and your team. Whatever is going to facilitate the most engagement, whichever feels like it's the safest for people. And if you do have, um, folks that are participating, got their cameras on, then it probably works in a variety of ways. So I think you have to assess kind of what's going to work, given your group. But you want to what you want to do is make sure you're not alienating anybody. All right. So trust, the one thing that changes everything, as Covey said. I don't think that's an understatement. So, think about how we're communicating, time management technology, facilitation skills, all of those kinds of things. How do we build that trust in that virtual environment and really get everybody to engage and and create that highest context as possible environment so that we can deliver value to our organizations, collaborate, solve problems, all of those kinds of things. So we'd love to partner with you on your skills development in any area: technical, leadership, project management, business analysis, quality, anything. We're here to help. Reach out. Specifically, here are a few classes coming up that you might be interested in. And with that, I'm going to thank you. If anybody's got any other comments or questions, appreciate you taking your time today to join us, and all the best to you for the rest of your week. Thank you, folks.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. And I just wanted to make sure you answered this question, right? What are your suggested encouragement methods?
Yeah, we
Pretty
talked
sure.
about
Yep.
that. Yeah, yep. Another one.
Perfect. Absolutely. Alrighty. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Andrea, for all your fantastic insight.
Oh, of course, always.
And if
Thank you.
anybody has any more questions, please do not be afraid to visit us at watermarklearning.com. And if you need any more information on this course, or you wanted to check out that recording, you will absolutely get a follow up after the webinar is conclude it. Oh my gosh, words are hard on this Thursday evening, y'all. But other than that, thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.